This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel, and you're listening to the original movie prop collecting podcast brought to you by Heritage Auctions. HA.com, they've got the big Guillermo del Toro Bleak House auction part 1 coming up in just a couple of days, Friday, September 26th. And you can, for all your bidding needs, go to HA.com, check it all out, get a catalog, bid there, bid live. The auction will be in Dallas, Texas. You can phone bid, you can computer bid, you can put a bid in on the internet and just walk away and hope you win, which you won't. Lots of different ways of winning and of losing, so it's all pretty good at HA.com, yeah.
You can have a friend bid. I've done that before.
Yes, you can have a friend bid. You can have an enemy bid. You can do anything you like. Yeah,
that's
Heritage,
true.
Heritage will make it possible.
Is Kelvin friend or foe, Dave? Do we know?
I don't know. Maybe he's
sure?
trying to secretly destroy you. We don't know.
One bid at a time.
Yeah, there's actually a big Heritage comic art auction going on right now. It's their big September auction. And you're having a piece. You're sort of watching a piece,
yes.
And I'm watching a very cool piece by Ivan Brunetti, who is this wonderful. I guess he'd be categorized. He seems to go into the underground section, but I don't necessarily think of him specifically. That's how they classify him, I guess. They put him with the crumbs and whatnot in the underground section. But I just think of him as a wonderful and hilarious artist, cartoonist. He's done New Yorker covers. He's done these just hilarious books, these joke books, He and Haw, that are full of just wonderfully horrific cartoons that are just so dark and so wonderful. And I own a bunch of his originals, but one of the covers to the books is coming up, so I'm going to try. I've got my. If you see me, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, and you keep seeing me peek or kind of hold my phone up to look at something, I'm sort of trying to make sure I don't miss it. I guess I could have just put a bid in, but I'm trying to bid.
What fun is that?
Yeah, like live and keep the live bidding. Yeah. By the way, I was bidding in the Heritage auction. I guess this is sort of what's new in props, although it's not what's new in props. It's what's new in, I guess, collecting more than what's new in props for me. I won. There were a couple of Watchmen pieces that I really loved. A page. Yeah, a page that I really wanted, and one of the ad pieces, which were the sort of pieces that Dave Gibbons drew that appeared in DC Comics in the lead up to Watchmen, that I always really remembered. In some ways, for me at least, remembered maybe more so than the actual covers to the individual issues of Watchmen, which were, a little more abstract, not sort of the traditional cover of Superman on every cover. So I really remember those ad pieces, and the Dr. Manhattan ad piece was up for sale. It had been known to reside in a collection for many years of one of the, I think, image artists. I think it was Jim Valentino. And either he put it up for sale or he had sold it to somebody and they put it up for sale. I don't remember the sequence of events. But anyway, it was a piece I'd always wanted. It was in the auction. And I was actually quite pleased. I would have happily paid more, and I got it for a very reasonable number. The one thing that was very funny is, have you bid online on Heritage? Have you ever done that, where the enable bidding and you can disable bidding?
Yes, I always make sure it's disabled.
I usually have it disabled, but it was still enabled from something I had won, and I didn't realize I have two screens. I have my main screen that I'm sort of looking at you all at, and then I have a laptop to the right of my screen, which I use as a second screen, and I did not realize that, and I was watching the auction on the second screen. I did not realize that the mouse had drifted over to the second screen, and I was waking it up, and as I woke it up or something, I hit the button and I bid on a random Hulk cover. But luckily it was early on in the process, and I think I was outbid, and I disabled the live auction. So yeah, Yikes. There you go. Yeah, so almost. But anyway, so that was exciting. And like I said, I'm paying attention to this piece, and of course my phone keeps falling asleep, and there probably is a better way of doing this, and I don't know why I haven't sort of figured out how to do this in a better way. But anyway, that's what's going on here at Casa Mandel. How are you? Oh, also I should add, I did go on Friday night. We went. A bunch of us went here at the house over to the Vista Theater, which is Tarantino's theater over in at the beginning of I guess Los Feliz. Well, I guess whatever you want to call it over there, sort of the end of Los Feliz and the beginning of whatever. Anyway, and we saw Kill Bill, the whole cut, the
Excellent.
the print from
The whole bloody affair.
Yeah, the whole from the Cannes Film Festival, which was very cool. You know, different, not radically different, but I will say the fight at the House of Blue, whatever, with the Crazy 88s and all that. There's no black and white. And there's definitely more violence to it, and it's just a more pleasing
House of Leaves,
fight. Yeah, House of Blue Leaves. Yeah, really, really great. Really, really cool. I certainly really, really dug it. And in the we've talked about this before. He decorates there's a cabinet in the entryway where the refreshments are, and in that cabinet there was a yellow jumpsuit which was really cool. I believe it was an Uma Thurman jumpsuit, and they had Bud's Hansa sword, the one that says "To my brother Bud, the only man I ever loved." So if you go to my, I actually stuck a little picture up on my personal Instagram, which you're all welcome to go check out. I guess I can give it to Bart as well. But yeah, the Bud's Hansa sword. Oh my God, yeah. Talk about, wanting to steal and rob from Quentin Tarantino. Yeah. So
that's epic.
Yeah. So.
By the way, this joke is 5 minutes past, but Ivan Brunetti either sounds like one of Kramer's harebrained scheme people.
I can see that. Yep.
I was walking through the park with Ivan Brunetti the other day, or it sounds like from Usual Suspects, one of the fake people that Kaiser Soze is using, spoilers, to throw
and then you realize,
Chaz Palminteri off the trail during the interrogation.
You realize later he's writing with an Ivan pencil and he's wearing Brunetti shoes or something like that, and you realize like, oh, that's how
Brunetti shoes, right? Yeah.
I don't know if Ivan would appreciate that, but who knows? Maybe so. Very excellent artist. So what's new in props with you? I sort of jumped the gun there, but sorry. How are you? What's new in props?
That's cool. I have a bit of it's sort of a nothing, but it's a House of the Dragon related thing.
Mm-hmm.
We've reached that point in the season, Dave. It's also we've reached that point in the series. We're starting to say goodbye to some people.
Oh wow, really? Wow.
And there are farewells, and I instituted this last season with some folks that we were sending off, people that are principal characters, people that are been on the show and in the credits and things like that, named characters that are regulars on the show. And I was really inspired by Peter Jackson's sort of tradition of sending people off with something from their character. He famously did this on Lord of the Rings. And, we make such beautiful stuff for the show, and the characters are so tied to it. If they're a warrior, their weapon, and sometimes the soldiers, their helmet, and then the other people, they're always key props that sort of, orbit these characters. So this week in particular was again, we're reaching the end of production. People are starting to wrap out. And this week in particular, last sort of 10 days, I guess, of filming, we've had a number of these sort of tearful farewell ceremonies, and I started giving these things away and making sort of a ceremony of it, and it's delighted me, I have to say. It's doing this. It's like, this is people speak in their love language, and obviously props are my love language, as is yours. I only wish that you had been on the show, Dave, so I could send you off with your key prop when I said goodbye to you. But it's just it's been really touching to see how meaningful it is, really, to the cast.
So when you do that. Sorry, just to understand it. So you'll go to like the prop department and go, so and so is leaving. I think it would be great. Can we spare one of the swords or something like the sword is very famous. Can we spare one of the swords? You get the sword. You get the heroes. You get the sword to give it to them, and then you go and you sort of on the wrap. You go, can I have everyone's attention? And maybe they're filming it as well. And you're like, it's been so great. Blah 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 blah. And I want to send you off with this T-shirt. because the sword's in your car. Is that how that works?
That's right. This is a very fine crew hat I had extra from season 1 that you weren't on, but sending you off with it. And BTS is there all the time, so they have they're there for the wrap out. You know, when an actor, you know, when there's a season wrap when you kind of say goodbye for the season end, but that implies that they are coming back or could come back, and then there's series wrap, which means you're usually in this show your character has died.
I was about to say you're dead. Yeah, you just got you got eaten by a dragon.
Yeah, or other. You never know. But yes, so the AD always calls together once they have the final shot done, and they'll kind of give everybody the heads up. And a lot of this we've had to prep in advance because sometimes it's a thing that you have to put on a display stand or put in a frame. And it's really nice because the departments, as you know, we've had many of them on the show, are so thrilled at the fact that I care so much about the stuff that they make.
And when these things are getting a little moment in the sun kind of thing too.
Yeah. And when I go to them and I say, you know, I need this thing. Can you furnish this? Or in some cases, I've had to have them make a thing because it's representative of something. I'm not like having them make a replica or something. It's just something that doesn't necessarily exist in the show. So I'm having them make something that is representative of the thing that exists in the show, and then giving that off. But there's been display stands, and it's often a multimedia sort of operation. So the departments will have to collaborate. You'll have props collaborating with costumes, or prosthetics collaborating with construction to make a stand or something like that. So it's been great fun, and I've just been really touched seeing the actors and the way that they react to it. And
that's nice.
For them, it's they're not collectors in any way, but for them, it's a totem and representative.
Yeah,
of this.
It's representative of the experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you doing that? Forgive me, when the king died in the first season, just to be able to talk about a character that has died, that is not a spoiler, I believe, at this point.
Yes. I've given away Kaiser Soze's ending, and also King Viserys dies in House of the Dragon. But yes, I was slow to the punch on that one because season 1 was a fucking train wreck, debacle, nightmare of a thing to make. But I made right with Patty on season 2 because he came back
lovely.
to do, and there was a thing that he wanted. I guess I'll say it, whatever.
You can say. I feel like that's not a spoiler at this point.
He kept saying to me, "I want that knife, Ryan. I want that knife." And I was like, all right, because he had it on him all the time. And I think
I get that.
For Patty, he's such a character, such a method. I don't know his actual.
No, but it's that thing of like, as soon as I put that knife on, I'm the king. Yeah,
but
or
he's
something
so
like that.
in it.
Yeah,
He's like, and whether it's method or another thing, Meisner or whatever else, he's so in it. And because the knife to him was the thing that Jaehaerys had given him and said, this is the thing that has the fire reveals the truth. The prophecy is sort of inscribed on the blade. No one else knows. This is the thing that you're going to pass on to your heir. For him, it was the burden of this secret that he had to pass on about, Aegon, and talking about the prophecy, and that we are going to have to stand against the cold and the dark that comes from the north, not knowing what it is or who or when it's going to come. So I think for Patty, it was more than the crown, more than anything. It was that knife that represented the burden of his being king.
Love it.
So when he came back, and he had agreed to come back with, very, very sort of generously, and just loved the show, and had told me, a number of times that it was the favorite character that he ever played, which, considering Patty Considine's his crazy oeuvre just blows me away. But I surprised him when he came back on his first day, and I just said, I owe you this. And they had made a nice little stand for it. And he was just absolutely blown out of his boots.
That's
excellent.
He
just really loved it. So it was one of the heroes, one of the really nice, used steel heroes. So please blow up Patty's Instagram and start asking him if he's willing to sell it. No, just kidding. Don't do that. Because I very much doubt that he will. He's doing fine. He's in 3 different series now. He's a very busy man. But
and he was just in, what did I see him in? Big movie this summer. He's sort of the slimy bad guy in F1, right? Isn't he pop up in that?
No, he wasn't in F1.
Am I losing my mind?
I don't think
confused?
He was. Yeah.
Who am I?
He might have popped up as a slimy bad guy.
Who am I thinking of in F1 now? Now I'm having this problem.
Who are you shouting to on the side there?
I don't know. I'm looking at myself. I'm now writing F1 cast, and I'm like trying to figure out who was I thinking of. I think he's in it. I think he's in it. I'm gonna see who I'm thinking of.
I went to the premiere of that
Who do
movie.
you think I'm thinking of? Who am I confusing him with? That's what's really interesting to me.
Brad Pitt? I don't know.
Possibly.
No.
Who's the... Well, this isn't even F1. I don't even know what this movie is. Hold on, let's try that again.
He has no known significant connection to Formula One, according to the AI Google search overview.
Who's
nor
the guy,
the sport, nor the movie.
Who's the guy I'm thinking of that's like the... Why am I mixing all these people up? Oh, I'm sorry. It's Tobias Menzies that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
You can understand why I'm confusing them. I apologize.
Different Thrones character, yes. Edmure Tully.
Yes. Yep. Yes. I apologize to Mr. Menzies and to Mr. Considine. So anyway,
Mr. Menzies played a different king, King Charles.
It's less that I was thinking of them in the Game of Thrones of it all, and they're a type.
Yes, I can see that.
Yes,
I can see that. It's a type.
I apologize.
It's for sure a type. Although Tobias plays them, he tends to go like he plays the posh villain, whereas Patty plays the sort of,
it's a little more working class, I guess. A little more,
like the Guy Ritchie villain is Patty's game. Love Patty, but yes, he was deeply moved by that. But it's been very nice. It's just been very nice as a lover of these objects to sort of give them up, and then everybody around is all of my fellow writers and directors who know about my sickness are all very very charmed watching me do this, because they just get a kick out of it.
No, so it's great. I will tell you, and obviously you still have a little bit to go, and obviously you have an interesting thing in that you do lose significant people along the way, but ultimately you will have a final episode, and there will be some last people standing kind of a thing. For us, we didn't particularly lose anybody along the way. When we got to the end of Veep, it was just as we were shooting that final episode, just on any given day, people sort of not necessarily on day one, but as whatever, I can't remember. Let's say it was a 9-day shoot on that last episode. Starting on like day 3 or 4, we started to wrap people out, and it was a lot. It was like, because it was more of a, all of a sudden show is ending and we're wrapping people out. They're doing their last things. I remember Matt Walsh was the first, and then they just started, falling like dominoes, and they had designed the schedule in this amazing way that basically, as you would imagine, Julia was the last to wrap. So everyone had wrapped out, and then finally her, and it was hard. It was really hard. It was just, I guess maybe because it was all jammed into a couple of days. But anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. I realize now thinking about it, I didn't get that on Colony because we thought we were going to make 2 more seasons of that show. So we said goodbye to people for the season, but we didn't have that goodbye ending, and we will have that on House of the Dragon, not this year, but in next season 4, we'll have that. So I'm sure that we'll carry with it some stuff to process. But yeah, that was my what's new in props.
Nice, very nice. Are you watching anything in the? Were you paying any attention to the comic art auction?
Yes, I mean I watched that Weapon X piece and just go bananas. And it hit orbit 2 bids in. It felt like, and I was bummed about it because it was a piece that I very much.
It's a great
loved.
piece. I mean, you may need to decide that the time has come for more of a great page as opposed to a splash or cover.
I mean, that's always what I was kind of looking for. I just think
the ship on the bigger pieces may have sailed.
Yes,
I guess.
and I think that splash to me is one of those. It's just one of those splashes that I think is actually better and more famous than the best cover in that series. I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, there were a lot of covers. When it was running in Marvel Comics Presents. Some issues, I think, I can't even remember, maybe that some issues had other covers, like non-Weapons X, but there's a lot of them, and some are good and some are less good. I mean, there's no bad cover, but some are more you'd want and ones wouldn't. But that page, I believe, that splash became very representative of the series. It was a wild number to see because again, I know I always say this, right, as this is my preface to talking about a number. We hate talking about numbers, but it only sold a couple of years ago for 200 and change in a Comic Link auction, and now to sell for 400 and change in a Heritage auction. That's a big jump in only a couple of years.
Yeah, it just felt like it was heading. It was. I didn't
Yeah.
have any hope for it really, but I was watching it. And for me, like putting the word out there, I'm in the market for a great Weapon X page, like an interior. So, I would like Weapon X on it doing, it doesn't have to be fighting or killing anybody, but I would like ideally sort of claws out some version of
Sure.
that.
No, you
I love that
want,
story.
you want Wolverine with, for lack of a better word, lots of wires coming in
Yeah.
and out of him. You'd love it if he was maybe wearing that crazy cyber helmet, is pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Some version of that. Maybe he's in the giant test tube. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's out and about killing people. But some version thereof. No, I get it. You just want a page with the bald professor, which I will now say for maybe the umpteenth time. As a longtime X-Men fan, and again, I always was sort of weirded out that like Chris Claremont wasn't the writer of that story, that they were telling this sort of early Wolverine thing at a time when the idea of like somebody other than Chris Claremont being involved with an X-Men story just seemed crazy to me. He was the guy. And so it was Barry Windsor Smith, and the story is fine. We've talked about that, but it does drive me crazy that there's a bald professor that isn't Professor X in that story. You have so many hair choices, and there's a bald professor. It makes me crazy. I can't explain it. It's like in those the fourth, I think it's the fourth or fifth Mission Impossible, the bad guy who's the leader of the evil Mission Impossible team is very similar looking to Simon Pegg. Do you know who I'm talking about? That sort
Patty
of
Considine?
Yes, I believe it's Patty Considine from the hit movie F1. There's the bad guy who's the leader of he's the British guy that's been put in charge, and he built his own secret team, but he looks exactly like Simon Pegg. And it's just like, why would you cast these two people in the same movie? Why would you put a bald guy in Weapons?
Yes,
Anyway,
I understand that. Yes, so I paid attention to that, and then
did you bid on the Conan piece, the Frazetta Conan?
Why not? Yeah, I put in a bid at 11 million because I knew I was going to
because you knew you were going to be outbid. Yep.
Yeah.
I like
no.
that.
Jesus, man, that was nuts. Yeah. What do you think of that? What do you make of that? By the way, also putting it out there, I would very much like a Frazetta piece. I think my painting ship has sailed. I wonder if my finished nice pen and ink piece ship has sailed. But yes, I would like a nice Frazetta piece.
I mean, that
at some
that
point.
number seemed to rise all the Frazetta ships in that auction, because there was
other stuff. Yeah.
There was like a female sketch that went for like, I don't know, 30,000 and change. There was a little color drawing of like a naked sort of giant character with a couple of like nude, like sort of female nymphs. That went for like 70,000. There was just a lot of numbers that seemed that a lot of Frazetta people perhaps came for the Conan, and when they lost, they decided to find something. I can't prove that. I'm just telling you what I saw. I mean, I was, it's a tough one. It's a funny thing. On the one hand, I'm not shocked because obviously it's a great painting and all of, it's a masterpiece by Frazetta. Those covers are so important. But at the same time, I guess I'm surprised that, like, I don't know. It's like, I wonder if the person bidding is somebody. It feels like the person winning it is, my guess is probably someone like older, like my age or even a little older. Obviously, they have a certain, those books, those covers must mean something. I don't think that's sport bidding for Frazetta. I don't think that's an investment, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So my assumption is that at least two people, because it takes two to tango, really just like, of the age and had the money and were like, I just want that on my wall. I love those books when I was a kid. I mean, I guess that's the best I can say. I was, like I said, I was surprised, but not surprised to see it kind of getting into, like, those are the numbers that I think when Frazetta was alive, that his wife wanted, that, you know, Ellie Frazetta always like hoped and dreamed that this is where Frank Frazetta stuff would be. And that doesn't mean it's all there, but obviously these big paintings
Right.
are.
It's been a long time since a Conan has gone publicly. So that was a big deal. And this is a great one. I mean, it's that, what is it? Is it People of the Black Circle? There's the famous Howard short story where he fights he breaks into the house looking for this like magician or lord or whatever to kill. He's been sent to kill, and he's got this like ape man bodyguard that springs on him unexpectedly.
Right, that's the gorilla in the cape, basically.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
it's this you know, killer fight in the books, and very cool and very disturbing. But it's a strange thing where like we were sort of talking about this offline the other day, that the Frazetta paintings, the covers of those, Doubleday, what was the
forgive me, yeah,
Bantam Spectra, whatever the paperbacks were, which were recollections of the Howard stories. They weren't even the original printings of it. It was the sort of anthologies that were made in the 70s, 60s and 70s of the Howard stories that were previously published in the 30s. That it almost seems like the art has eclipsed the popularity of the story.
Very much so. I mean, the Frazetta really sold those books, I guess, you know, the second time around. I mean, they paid the money to get Frazetta to do those covers, you know, and I think let him keep the art, because that's how they were sort of selling and marketing them. And it worked. You know, those Frazetta covers brought eyes to these books that a lot of people had sort of, you know, stopped thinking about. But I don't know, I don't know anyone, like, you know, even in just the various things I read that are about reading, no one ever pops up and goes like, you might want to check out the Frazetta novels. You know, I'm sorry, the Conan novels with the cool Frazetta covers. You don't hear people talking about reading those books, which is why I guess I'm trying to like sort of figure out, is this is this an older reader who read them and has a soft spot for it? Or is it just somebody who just thinks it's cool and is going for it? I mean, again, I guess we won't really know. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, impossible to know unless they out themselves.
But those stories don't seem to be, I guess, on people's minds. The Conan stories, or by the way, the John Carter stories either. Like none of that stuff that Frazetta sort of famously
especially
did covers
John Carter for sure. I mean, I will say that I love the Conan stories, and I've read those things. I've read the collected volumes. There's this really nice, I mentioned I have the cover, Gary Janney's cover piece to one of the 3 volumes of the collected that I've been through at least twice. I've read these things. I can't say I've read every Conan story, but I've certainly the big popular ones I've read multiple times, and I truly love them. I mean, as known to people that know me and maybe even know this podcast, I had previously developed a series with Amazon to do Conan live action, but to tell it in the serial sort of format the way the stories are done. So it's to go back and do faithful adaptations of each of the Conan short stories. And if that was one episode, it was one episode. If it was 3 episodes, it was 3 episodes. Just to sort of string those together kind of in a somewhat chronological way and tell that story. And they seem pretty gung-ho on it.
I was going to say, yeah, wisely, they made Lord of the Rings.
Well, that's what happened, is like they seemed really gung-ho on my series, and then they paid $250 million or whatever just for the rights of Lord of the Rings. And I was like, I don't know if they're making 2 giant fantasy series over here. So that was that. And then, House of the Dragon happened anyway. So, yes, I have a deep, deep love for those books, but I think I'm, not that I'm unique, but I think that I would say that that's a cult thing, whereas the Frazetta paintings are very much, illustration art mainstream.
They are, but boy, they're so specific. We're not talking about like, I don't know, a Leyendecker or a Norman Rockwell where you can kind of go, this is a diner in the mid,
Americana.
It just feels hard to imagine somebody buying that cover, I don't know, who doesn't know the story, but maybe, I guess this is where I am honestly confused. Like, don't you have to really love Conan the Barbarian to buy that thing? I mean, if you told me you bought it, I'd go, oh, I get it. But I'm
And
I'm
what are you
curious. Yeah.
doing?
Well, maybe, but I'm curious about who the act. I mean, we probably aren't going to know. So yeah,
Thack is his name.
who's Fack?
Thack is the
Thack.
man ape's name. I was just
Oh.
looking up which book on the fringes of Zamora.
And that's
Rogues,
who
Rogues in the House. Rogues in the House.
Rogues in the
that's
House
the one.
and Thack with a TH.
THAK. And then they used
and Thack is who Patty Considine plays.
yes, only an F1 though.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And he's also they sort of adapted that into that was the sort of ape man and destroyer. I mean, that was based on that.
Right.
It was ripped from the pages of that story. It's a cool thing. Rogues in the House. That's it. That's actually
ripped against its will. But go on.
Yeah. If you want to read some great Conan story, if you just want to pick out a couple of great ones, highly recommend Rogues in the House. That's a great one. People of the Black Circle, the other one I was referencing, is a great one. And Red Nails. I would say those are like the three that sort of pop to mind if you wanted to just sit down and, they're 60, 50 pages. I mean, they're short stories, so they were meant to be serialized into a pulp magazine format. But they're really terrific. I mean, his prose for a guy that was in his 20s is just freaking incredible.
I never read them. I have them. I never read them. Just never quite talked about it, thought about it, never quite pulled.
Rogues
the
in the House, Dave.
Yeah.
Try it, pick it up, read it, give it a read.
I probably will. I managed to read some of the. I for the longest time I had Sherlock Holmes stuff that I never read, and finally kind of started making a dent in that.
That's
so
cool. I've done a little bit of that. But not,
maybe this can follow that in a sort of similar fashion. Yeah, but
yeah. So I do have we're ready segue to main topic.
Yep. Speaking of coconuts,
I do have a really excellent Frazetta that I rather love that I don't believe has ever been on the public market, which is a pen and ink sketch. It's a sketch, but it's pretty tight as far as these things go, especially for Frazetta, of a saber-toothed tiger like fighting over a meal with a vulture on sort of a rock face, and it's got the really nice Frazetta signature. But Dave, I would really at some point in my life love to upgrade that drawing to something that's more, complete and finished and published. And that's the topic for tonight.
Yes. Speaking of upgrades and coconuts, that is the topic for today. It's something that has come up from time to time. I think both in our own private discussions, when we're talking about like what we're interested in and whatnot, but also it has come up, on the show from time to time in terms of certain things. Well, things that I can think about going way back was when Ryan had he had originally had a Jedi. You had a Jedi Stormtrooper, right, in your collection at some point, and you sold it off years ago, and you were kind of waiting for a New Hope Stormtrooper helmet, which was an upgrade. And you sort of got rid of your Jedi even before your upgrade was in front of you, which is obviously one way of doing it. But sometimes you have a piece in your collection. Oh, no, I'm just saying it's, sometimes you have the piece in your collection and you think to yourself, like, do I want to upgrade it? Can I upgrade it? I think a piece that I've talked a little bit about within my own collection is my pulse rifle, which obviously we've talked about is a pulse rifle that was sort of painted black for Aliens 3, the third Alien movie. And it is certainly not of the caliber of some of these, I guess, what should we call them? Hero pulse rifles that have shown up from Aliens. And I am aware of that. And it's something that is sort of on my list where I do think a lot about, I'd love to have, I guess, how does one say this? I'd love to have a better one. I'd like to upgrade my pulse rifle. But when you start to think about upgrading of something like that, there's a lot of criteria. And in this case, certainly part of the criteria for me is it worth it to upgrade? Like, what can I sell mine for? What will it cost me to buy the new one? For the longest time, and this is a very specific individual case.
Am I selling the original thing in the first place?
Right.
Like for me with the Frazetta, like I love this piece, and I sent a photo to Bart, so he will post it on either live in the stream as we're talking about it. It's definitely on the social feed. But I don't know, like I love this piece, so I think if a great Frazetta came along, I don't know. I mean, maybe if I had to spend a lot of money on it, I would have to. but I think, in this case, because I love it's art and I love this thing. I've had it for so long. I would actually just love to add to it, which is an upgrade, but not in the sense
Right.
that you're funding it with the other piece.
Well, by the way, I purchased the Greg Jean Stormtrooper helmet with originally this idea of I'm sorry, the full Greg Jean
Costume.
full costume with hero helmet, with the idea that I would probably get rid of my costume that's missing a few pieces that has the stunt helmet. And it's interesting, and I never quite did get rid of it. And one of the reasons I didn't get rid of it is I really love, and it's certainly an indulgence, but I do really love having the hero and stunt versions of the New Hope Stormtrooper. They are so different when you see them sitting next to each other that I actually really think it's something really special, like to have and to see. And I'm fascinated both in terms of, just the construction and the stories and the design and all of that kind of stuff. And so I assumed that would be kind of an upgrade, but I never quite, pulled the trigger on the getting rid of. Now, maybe, who knows, one day. But going back for 4 seconds to the pulse rifle, I was going to throw in, this is a completely different part of the story, is I got that pulse rifle so long ago that the money is just baffling. I mean, I paid like $5,000 for my pulse rifle. So, when you start to think about like what will a new one cost, that number versus what I paid for the one I have, like, doesn't even make any sense. Now, recently, one like mine did sell in the recent prop store auction brought to you by Heritage, sold for about $150,000, which all of a sudden maybe then makes the notion of buying one and selling mine, knowing I could get maybe 150 or so for mine, certainly makes it all doable. But you do have to ask yourself, like, what's a new one going to cost? Would a new pulse rifle be $200,000-$300,000? Is that what we think it would probably be? $300,000 ish, maybe, right? That's kind of the ballpark the last time around.
I don't know. I mean, we have not seen one of the Metal Shroud ones sell at public auction. They've changed hands sort of behind the scenes, but we have not seen one go public, and I think people go pretty batty over that.
Yeah,
and there aren't that many of them. I mean, there are only 3 of them that we know of.
So again, it's like, what is that worth to me? And the honest answer is, most of the time, even with this notion that I could sell mine for $150,000, I don't know whether it's the original paid price or just the concept of, having to pay money for a new one when I have this one that's pretty darn good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not quite sure that's an upgrade I'll ever pull the trigger on. And I think that's some of those things that you start to think about of like, how badly do I want the upgrade? Is it worth it? And how does it work? And I think those are the things, I don't know, we think about. I mean, going back to your Stormtrooper, what was going through your brain a bit? I mean, you just felt like you wanted a Star Wars one. That was really ultimately.
Well, I mean, I sold it because of basically I was offered a whip and I uncovered the Hero Conan sword at the same time.
Gotcha.
And I was really sort of like, I don't think I can make all 3 of these things happen at once and still be alive at the end of it. It was just a much different time in my life. So I knew I had a great offer, a standing offer on the helmet. So I just took that, knowing that there were, if of those 3 pieces, there were the most Stormtrooper helmets out there, I could always go back and get another one.
But when you were getting rid of it, I understand you weren't getting rid of it specifically to upgrade, but in the back of your mind, were you thinking, I wished I had a New Hope one that that I can get rid of this because I probably would have gotten rid of it eventually as part of an upgrade. So the upgrade was on your brain. Yeah.
A New Hope or Empire. I would have been happy with either of those. And it took, as we know from previous discussions, it was like a 10-year odyssey, but it did come back around. And now, ironically, I'm very happy with my helmet. I love my helmet. I would love to upgrade again to get one of the dialogue helmets. I would love, like the one that you have.
A screen match to a key moment kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The famous dialogue helmets. You have, there's one set for stun. That's the kind of thing. I'm never going to get a hero helmet, I don't think, but this would be so that's sort of on my mind as we march forward in time. If one of those things were to come up, I think I would try to buy that and then offload my great matched helmet that just isn't matched to a sort of hero moment.
In a perfect world, though, that's probably not. In theory, if it happens, I guess, let's say sooner, I guess again, if it's another 10 years, I don't know where numbers are. But in theory, at least, you have such a strong one, and the upgrade
When I'm
perhaps
hiding in my house from the
Right.
Terminators that are hunting down the last vestiges of humanity.
But I think the differential
Powered by
between
Tesla.
and brought to you by Prop Store. When you and Patty Considine see him in this summer's hit F1 movie, if the differential between the Stormtrooper you have and the upgrade you want, I actually think is perhaps a smaller upgrade than how I think about things as perhaps having like a stunt or a background and looking to get a sort of hero. And again, I'll be curious, if you were able to pull that off, which I do believe you will be able to. I bet something like that ultimately doesn't cost you that much because your helmet is a screen matched helmet from A New Hope. So it's going to go for X. And so, heck, on the right day, I could imagine a world where you actually even make a little money. I know that sounds crazy because I think the differential there is smaller. When you were talking about it, you sort of, I liked your phraseology because it was very, it felt like very math, very economics, very accountanty in a very good way. You were talking about the delta. I loved your phrase, the delta, because it felt very like we're not just idiots. Like there's a plan here. Yeah, I know, but it sounded like we weren't. Explain the delta to those of us out there. How do
there's a new book on the making of Spinal Tap out that I believe Rob Reiner wrote himself or co-wrote, and I think that it's the famous line from the movie. It's the thin line between
fine line between stupid and clever.
Stupid and clever, yes. And I think that's what we're talking about when we're talking about upgrading six-figure Stormtrooper helmets. But yes, the delta would be the difference. That's the term they use in math and science to determine the difference between two data points. And I've been talking about this was related to a thing that I would very much like to upgrade, and I sort of had a bead on, which has kind of gone quiet and silent. But I had a bead on upgrading my Indiana Jones whip to something a little more in the class of the whip that you have.
Just to explain this, because I think we've talked about it, but just for those that maybe have missed previous discussions, you have a great whip. It was definitely from Last Crusade.
Yep.
It doesn't perhaps look like it was used a lot. I guess, is that how you would basically?
Yeah, I know. I mean, actually the fall is rather that's the sort of white piece at the end of the leather, the first thing before the cracker, which is the twine braid, is actually rather dirty. So I think it was used quite a bit, but maybe it was used in stunt training or whatever. I don't know that my whip was used in a specific scene or sequence on the in the show. It came from a stuntman. It has impeccable provenance. A stuntman that's known to have, not Vic Armstrong, but somebody that doubled for Indiana Jones. But it's a 10-footer. And they made a bunch of those for Last Crusade, and those were the things that people tended to walk away from set with, either gifted or just took with them. So I feel like it's my issue with it is simply it's a non-specific whip. I would love a specific whip, something that we know, a cable whip that was used in this sequence. I would love a whip that came from a more prominent crew member, something that has a great letter or a story, or one of these things that looks older and maybe was used in multiple films. And particularly, I think the thing that I'm kind of looking for is one of these 8-footers, because it just seems that they are rarer, and those are the ones that tended to be strapped to Indy's waist or in his hand when he was doing a Crackaroo stunt. So there's one of those that was out there. I was looking at it. It's an issue of money, and also just does the seller want to sell it? And I think those two things were kind of coming up sort of not in my favor. But I explored it out. I made a real offer, all that, and the person that I was talking to about it was very much like, well, what's your number on it? And I just kept saying, I don't care as much about the number. I just care about the delta, which is like, what's the difference in the value between mine and what I'm paying? And I will pay, I will pay between X and Y to make this upgrade. Regardless if that whip is $2 million, if you can get me, 1.9 whatever million dollars for mine, I will happily make that trade.
And as you were doing it, I mean, there've been a lot of whip sales in the last, like, I guess, couple of months,
Fast and Furious,
and those
last
numbers,
year and a half, really, Dave.
Right. And those numbers have been very strong. I mean, which does help I guess it helps the delta stay smaller, in that the idea of what your whip might sell for has certainly, I think, increased more than where it was a year ago, I guess, in my brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I made I made a very, very, very healthy offer. And unfortunately just did not get the job done. A bit where I was actually kind of putting myself out there a bit, really having faith in my ability to turn my whip, which again is a great whip. It's why I bought it. I do love it, but because Indy is such a key collecting point for me, and I have the matched hat and the matched shirt, I would just like to have. I have a very special hat and a very special shirt. I have a whip that is unspecific, and I would like a specific one. That's the level of upgrade that I'm looking for.
So here's a more of a maybe psychological question that I'm curious about. On a given day, is it eating at you, or it's just sort of you'd like it? You know what I'm kind of asking? Like, how often are you thinking about that your whip is not this? I know this is an honest answer, because be where I'm going with this, and just to loop back around for 4 seconds to the pulse rifle. I maybe have made, I mean, again, I just was talking about the possibilities. Oh, one just sold for 150 and whatever. But I got to be honest with you guys. I see a world where I never upgrade mine. It is what it is. I'm very happy. I have my pulse rifle, and maybe that's tied back into the original price I paid for it and all of that stuff. And again, I know what it is. I understand it was, I understand what it isn't, and I understand what it is. But I have a nice representation from the movie. I'd like to maybe try and get a piece of armor to go with it. Maybe I'm more interested in getting a piece of armor to make a display for the pulse rifle than I am in upgrading the pulse rifle. And I've come to terms with that a little bit, that I'm not particularly going to upgrade. And that's why I was wondering how much it sort of, is it gnawing at you, I guess?
No, I mean, I think I got close enough on this one that it bothered me simply because it felt like you thought it was going to happen.
Yeah,
and then it didn't. It's definitely not eating at me. Again, I have a great whip. I've owned this. This whip is probably, I think I got the order of at least big acquisitions, things that weren't just little pieces here and there. It was pulse rifle, then Jedi Stormtrooper helmet, then whip. And then once the Jedi Stormtrooper helmet left, it was pulse rifle whip. So of the things that I still have, that whip is the second thing ever that I required, sort of big A pieces. And there's a bunch of sort of sentimentality wrapped up in that. So I'm not looking to kick it out the door by any means. I would just like to have something better. And I think I've reached that point in my collection where I look around at this, which is probably representative of about, half the things that I have at this point. And I there isn't much more new out there that I want or is that on my list. So I think where I go as a collector who, it's just the nature of the beast. You don't stop collecting. You're always curating, refining, whatever. The next thing I look to is like, what can I have that's better? And that whip stands out as a piece that, that could be upgraded. There's also the Blade Runner gun. Like, does the hero ever come up? Which is, of course, much longer stretch, just knowing that there's only one and where it is, and it's unlikely to ever
That's
appear.
A sort of an interesting sort of different kind of upgrade, because there really is only one, and it's a collection. Obviously, that doesn't mean that I can't imagine him selling it, but obviously things happen. And
but that's a massive delta.
That's a huge delta. But it's funny. That's that's almost a different kind of upgrade, because you're really talking about an upgrade of one. Like, there is one, and there will be competition. Whereas, sometimes you can have a background piece, like in Planet of the Apes, there are background costumes that some of them are sort of simpler, and then there are more sort of hero costumes with like certain differentials. There's the same thing with there were background ape masks as opposed to the ape appliances that went on to the more hero people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are lots of everything. I mean, again,
Yeah.
maybe the makeup stuff didn't carry forth as much, but that's interesting. I mean, going back to the lightsaber for 4 seconds.
Yeah, that would have been a big upgrade.
I mean, that was an upgrade. I have in my collection, I guess, a resin stunt lightsaber, and it's pretty fantastic. It's a Luke
I love it.
lightsaber from Jedi. It's really special. I'm working on a display for it, so I think it'll really sort of shine when people can actually see it. Although not to take anything away from the bubble wrap it's currently in, the wad of bubble wrap that it's wrapped in. Yeah, no, a really nice display that I made.
Is Roger Christian building the display for you?
Home Depot sold me a bunch of bubble wrap. So, it's a funny thing. I mean, I guess as I was thinking about my bidding on the lightsaber, which our audience knows did not go successfully, there was an element of I can sell what I thought I could sell my lightsaber for. But again, by the way, let me go because of course it's us. And then, of course, a part of me is going, well, but it's a Luke. And then if I get a Vader, so again, back to do you really want to get rid of the one, whatever. But no, I had made my peace, I think, with the idea that I would try and sell it, and that there were a couple people or at least certainly 1 or 2 people vaguely interested in it, and certainly as the Vader one went higher and higher and higher, it's not that I necessarily thought that I could get millions of dollars for mine, but I did start to think like I could at least have a number that would help on mine. So, the upgrade was a part of it. It was definitely in my, I'm not sure I was thinking the Delta, but I was definitely sort of thinking about it as part of the upgrade. I'll tell you something else that I've upgraded over the years, which I think is an interesting example. With clapperboards, which is something you and I both collect and we both have talked a lot about, occasionally, especially on the big movies that we like, your Indiana Jones movies, your Star Wars movies, et cetera, there are, for example, Indiana Jones movies that are, clappers that are for the second unit, so don't have Steven Spielberg's name on it as a director. And I had, I believe, one of those at some point. I had a second unit one that was very cool, and I liked it, but I really wanted one that had Steven Spielberg.
Course,
you know what I mean? So, yeah, exactly.
I was offered an Empire one that was, I didn't have an Empire board, but I was offered the, who was that? The second unit director. Was that Mickey Moore?
May have been Mickey Moore. Yeah, that sounds right. Unless he's the Raiders one, and we're getting
that might be the Raiders
anyway,
one. But anyway, it wasn't Kirshner. I would love a Kirshner board, but the price to me was pushing what a Kirshner board would be, and I was like, I love this, but I'm always going to just want a better board. And I
remember we sort of talked about it a little bit, and it was sort of like, even if you could get the guy down, at the end of the day, it was a board that you would be purchasing knowing you could upgrade. And that's sort of to talk now about a little bit of a concept. When I first got into, I'll start with comic art, but it gets to props too. I think prices were such that you could buy a piece with the idea of upgrading down the line. Now, I think I started to learn like, well, why do that? Occasionally, maybe just wait for the piece you want, but you could do it. Now, when the numbers are so high, it's hard to imagine. I think you have to ask yourself, if I never find the upgrade, am I happy? You know what I mean? Like, just to get into some level, because otherwise you are buying a piece for a significant amount of, a high number. Like if you had bought the non-Kirshner Empire board, buying something you kind of want to upgrade, at what point is a placeholder not worth it, just price-wise? And again, that number is going to be different for every person, but you definitely have to think about it, because I think it's a little harder to think about the world of upgrading. I think it's easier to level jump in general. Like I've been buying pieces like this, and now I'm going to spend some money and go here, but it just seems like, I don't know, I guess I might offer the advice of wait rather than upgrade, unless it's the kind of thing where you're not even sure you would be able to afford the upgrade, in which case we'll get what you can as long as you're happy. I guess
Right.
a lot of it comes back to what is your own concept of happiness.
And also simply what's out there.
Right.
Like if nobody had ever seen a Kirsch board before,
Right.
then maybe you just do it because I don't know if there is one. I don't know if there's one out there.
Do you think if you had if the hero, forgive me, if the hero Blade Runner gun had sort of never shown up, it was sort of like just out there in the mist. We know it exists, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you still would have pulled the trigger on a stunt knowing that hero could show up at any time?
Sure.
Okay. I was curious. Yeah.
Especially with the price that I paid for it.
Sure. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
For sure. And look, I love my stunt. You can see it kind of in the top corner right there. Ooh, this way, right there.
More to a touch to your right. Sorry. Yeah. You got it there. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that piece. I love the amber grips and all that really make it, and you know what it is. And again, this one, I think it's matched. I think it's matched to at least a photo. So it's a very nice one. No, I never hesitated on that. I didn't hesitate on the Luke / Solo stunt blaster.
Right.
I would love a hero, upgrade there. That's unlikely to ever happen. Those have all kind of been accounted for. Unless something surprising shows up and changes the calculus on that. So I'm very happy to have that. I just think that again, you look at it, you know what it is, it was that thing was for sure used on screen because they were carried around. At worst, it was in somebody's holster, but it was on set on film.
You can be super happy with a piece that still maybe, yes, if the upgrade ever is possible. Yeah, maybe I will upgrade. Like if all of a sudden a Han Solo gun that in a perfect world is made from something that was bought on eBay like 3 weeks ago and doesn't match any photos and has all the wrong pieces, and I'm going to sell it to you for a couple of $1 million. I think you're going to really like it. And I've got a note from Roger Christian and Jason Joyner saying it's perfect. If one of those shows up, you might upgrade, but in a world where it never does, again, very happy with what you have. And I think, again, a lot of upgrading is about happiness. I know that's a very unquantifiable. There's no delta for happiness. Yes. But, again, I don't think you should buy a piece
marginal utility, Dave. Marginal utility. That is the economics term for that. It is basically the happiness. What is the marginal utility that you get out of this object? And so look, sometimes that's I need a car with better gas mileage so that I don't have to fill my tank 3 times a week and disrupt my commute.
But also, I'm happier when I have a fancier, fast-looking car
Ferrari I'm happy to fill the Ferrari for a time.
That doesn't have good gas mileage.
Yeah, marginal utility. Wow, this is a real economics discussion. Really going back to my beloved days at Villanova University as an economics undergrad.
Were you an economics major? I don't think I realized that.
Yes, I started out as this is major talk here on coming up on my 25th graduation, 25th reunion.
Very nice. Will you go back for that? Will you go back?
I would like to. I'd very much like to because I went to 5th, I think, and then I have not been since. But I would like to just to see what's going on. But I started out as an economics major, and then I had a very charismatic accounting professor at some point who kind of convinced me that he's like, you'll never make any money doing economics. It's all theory, whatever. You need to be an accountant. That's how you really get in. That's where people want CPAs. That's how and you don't have to do like CPA where you don't have to do people's taxes. But the platform to get to where you really want to get is being an accountant. So I actually added accounting as a double major because I'm the Lisa Simpson of my family. And I was doing 21 credits and whatever, trying to keep it all together. And then at the very end, in my June, maybe senior year, New York, New Jersey added 3 courses that you had to take in order to be able, as a BS, as a Bachelor of Science accountancy, in order to be able to get your CPA. And I had to take those classes I basically had to choose. Am I an economics major or an accounting major? I could no longer do both. The university, I would have had to take 24 credits, and the university was like, we're not letting you do that. I was like, but I can do it. I can take it on. They would not let it. So I ended up with an accounting major, economics minor.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And then, whatever. I mean, basically I was an economics minor that was like probably 2 credits short of getting the major qualification.
There's still time.
So
Still time.
whatever. And the reason that Amazon passed on my Conan series is they're like, well, we're really just looking for an economics major.
It may not surprise you. I never took an economics class ever.
Really? But I feel like you're interested in government and all that. I figured like that
I was a government major, and I certainly could have gotten credit in, probably in hindsight should have taken one at least just to do it. But I just no real interest. Have you ever written a scene, maybe something in House of the Dragon? I don't know, maybe in anything where, like, I don't know, they were talking about...
Use the word delta?
Well, I just know they were talking about trade or something, or like something about... like we have to whatever to get the farming to trade. I know where you somehow because I at least luckily when I did Veep, all of a sudden I used a lot of my government stuff. I mean, I did.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
I just was curious if anything has ever kind of arisen where you're just like, wait a second, like. This is how they'll explain like the triangular whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
I've not been lucky enough. I mean, we do talk a bit about trade in House of the Dragon because it's just a natural sort of, especially with like the war and the sort of resulting economic impact on the on the economy, on the on the realm.
Right.
But I think that's sort of tangential. It's funny because early in my career, I wrote a spec that never went anywhere, but actually did a lot of my early heavy lifting in terms of getting me attention in writing competitions, and then with some representation that was based on my early career as an accountant, and just the drudgery of it, I think,
sure.
and the drudgery of being a new accountant, a 21, 22-year-old accountant who's really just pushing spreadsheets around on a desk and not really doing anything. And but I do think at some point in my future, I do have the middle-aged man ennui sort of story in me, the sort of American Beauty falling down, that sort of, I think that's in there, and I think there's got to be sort of an accountant at the center of that. So stay tuned. Maybe my next
it'll
act
come back out.
that'll come back around. How did we get on?
I don't even know. Somewhere in there was
deltas and margins.
Upgrades, delta and upgrades. Yeah.
And then there's another version of upgrading, which I've been successful with in one field, and one thing I think it's going to be my white whale until my death, is upgrading a costume that you're working on. And I've been very successful upgrading my Dallas alien spacesuit from where I bought it, which was probably in the 70%, maybe generously sort of complete. I'm now much closer, I think, I can say with confidence, to like an 85, 90% completeness. Nice. I was able to add gloves and boots and a hero belt. And basically the known things that were out there, I was really able to acquire and add to it. And it's just plussed up the costume so much more. Really, the only things that are missing are the original shoulder bells and the chest plate that says Dallas on it. The chest plate no one's ever seen. We know where the shoulder bells are. Those are unfortunately on another costume in another collection. Maybe one day, but it's not killing me.
Right.
That
Sorry,
I
does
don't
your
have.
Costume have incorrect shoulder bells or just no shoulder
replica.
Bells? Replica. Okay. I didn't know if you had like a third character's shoulder bell. I didn't know what you were saying.
I have my Dallas's hero shoulder bells. I know where those are, and I think that's probably the last thing that I could actually get to.
But that is
upgrade the costume. So
I wasn't even thinking about that, and that's actually fantastic. I think that's a really fantastic point in terms of like with costumes, the ability to add pieces that are missing, add perhaps accessories that are missing. One costume that comes to mind are, we were talking about the Aliens pulse rifles, but to talk about the full Aliens costumes, I used to own one. You have armor, but when I had one, it was a whole thing, which was to find the Obviously, first you have the armor. There's a lot of pieces of the armor. There are pieces, on the arms and they're on the legs and whatnot. Then at some point or another, I had the BDUs for a different character. I was able to get the BDUs for the character I had. And then I began to start buying some of the various. Oh, I didn't have a camera. I didn't have the belt pieces. And I start, and I was able to sort of piece together a lot more of it by the end than I certainly had to begin with. And I definitely upgraded the suit unto itself. And another example, even my Stormtrooper suit, my second one, the one that still is not complete, but when I got it, it was less complete. And over the years, I found boots for it that I was able to add to it. And I also was able to trade. I had 2 left shoulder pieces, and there was a guy with 2 rights, or I'm sorry, forearms, and or whatever this piece is, bicep, and we traded, and we each got the proper left and right, which was interesting. So that kind of stuff
That's cool.
can happen on a costume. We talked about, like, I think last episode or 2 episodes ago, the notion of, like, with a Star Trek costume, tracking down original braid or original insignias and whatnot, and being able to plus up a costume that way.
With
So
next gen, pips and a communicator.
Yes.
And yeah.
So I think you can upgrade an individual piece with accessories and details without necessarily sort of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, which I think is also a really fantastic way of putting something together. Often it is just tracking down the shoes or tracking down the overcoat. I mean, you've pieced together your Blade Runner costume and you've sort of upgraded it all along the way, just adding more and more to what originally was really just a shirt. But I definitely would consider that a huge upgrade. So again, a different way of thinking about upgrading, but I do like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the thing that I was sort of hinting at was my my indie costume, which I love, and I love the display behind me.
Yep.
If that's all it ever is, that's totally fine with me. But it's in want of a jacket, and that would be a mega upgrade for me. And that's
in want of a jacket and a whip belt.
So I would love to do that at some point, but who knows what the what the fates will.
And by the way, I could sit here and say to you, and I'd love to find pants and shoes. I mean, I don't know, so I'm not necessarily, I'm not worrying about it. But I will also say, I am pretty happy. Mine at this point is hat, jacket, and shirt, all from Last Crusade. And tomorrow you could show me one that is from Raiders, and I don't know, look, it clearly matches this moment, and I'll take Raiders any day of the week over Last Crusade, but I don't feel like it's an upgrade. It is what it is. You know what I mean? I'm very happy. So I think you can. There's probably, maybe this is a different way of thinking about it, there's probably always an upgrade. Like you could always
an upgrade,
I've got this from, whatever, from Jedi. Oh, what if I had Star Wars, whatever. So there's always an upgrade.
I mean, that's another great point, is the movie upgrade.
Right.
I have a Last Crusade hat. That Raiders hat came along a couple years ago. I actually went through a real thought exercise because I had this big Last Crusade collection. Then I was thinking, I had like 5 or 6 major mega pieces, and I was thinking, well, I can't afford the hat on its own, but I do have a screen matched hat. So if this hat gets pushed to a level, certainly my screen matched hat from Last Crusade is worth a percentage of that, and then I could just move this other stuff along to get the Raiders hat, and then maybe I could just have a Raiders hat, and maybe that's my whole indie collection. And I did the thought exercise, but I didn't have the gumption at the point to pull the trigger on it. And ironically, Dave, that Raiders hat just a few years ago, and it's probably 6-7 years now at this point, it's been some time, but sold for less ultimately than the last matched non-Raiders hat did. So certainly if the Raiders hat came up today, I mean, it would go bananas. It would be just absolutely mayhem. I think the movie upgrade is a great point. You want, I have a great example. This is a double example. I just upgraded my Batman spear gun. I was able to add an original spear to it. but which I am thrilled to buy. I will be even more thrilled by if Chris Barton can work his magic and get that spear to go in the spear gun, which I'm really hoping for, and keep the the cable line intact. I think it's not a question of whether it'll fit. It's just a question of does the line still work and be able to pull in and out and all that. And does he have to cut the line or do anything to the line? The things I'll have to make a call on when he gets to analyze it. But at the end of the day, it's a returns piece, and I would love.
Can I pause you for 4 seconds? But that was an upgrade in and of itself.
Massive upgrade.
You had a piece without the arrow, and by adding the arrow, you upgraded your piece by completing it. But carry on.
Yes, massive upgrade. But I would ultimately love one of the heroes, the firing heroes from 89 Batman, which in theory have to be. Somebody has to have kept those things. And look, maybe it's Tim Burton. Maybe that's the reason we've never seen it. I don't know, but somebody has to have kept those things. Hope remains. Hope lives eternal. Springs eternal. That one of those things will come up. But this is a great piece to have in the meantime because it scratches the itch. I love returns as well. I just love 89 a little bit more. And this is a fine placeholder. And if that thing does come forward, I have a great thing to say. Hey, I can offer this in spirit of the upgrade.
Right. When the pieces are identical, when they're just exactly the same, I'm not sure there's a rule. I think certain movies, the movie upgrade does matter to me, and on some of them, at some point, I'm not sure I care. Do you know what I mean? Like, Don't get me wrong. I love Ghostbusters, and the second Ghostbusters is fine. But I'm not sure, if someone handed me, again, I'm not talking about, if someone said to me, here's a ghost pack, here's a full, hero pack from Ghostbusters 2, I'm not going to poo-poo it just because it's 2 and I like the movie less. And I'm not even sure I would be worrying about the upgrades so much for whatever reason, even though without a doubt I can say Ghostbusters is obviously the way, 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 way better movie. So, but yet with Star Wars, it does, I think about it more so. So again, I think, that's personal taste.
Yeah.
The different movies are going to mean certain things. But it is interesting when the prop is sort of almost like identical. Like with the ghost traps, some of them are reused, but they just stuck some pieces on. So you could get a Ghostbusters 2 ghost trap that has a couple of new Greeblies on it, but actually is a Ghostbusters 1 ghost trap.
Yes,
so I guess
which is what I have. And that's the case with most of them because they were if they weren't taken away from the set, taken home on Ghostbusters 1.
They were reused.
They were reused on 2. So they all exist in that state. And that's what makes collecting Wrath of Khan so difficult is that there aren't the uniforms are all reused and rejigged as they went on down the other Trek movies. So you can have one that has Khan lineage but isn't specific to Khan, and then there was that very special one that emerged a few years back that was from Nick Meyer that was taken off set on Khan, so it was still in its Khan condition. And that's what makes my Khan costume so special is that
they never used it again, which is wonderful.
The away parka again, so it's from Khan. But I think people who want a maroon costume, they'd love it if it was from Khan, but if it's from Search for Spock or Quest for Peace or whatever, is it Quest for Peace? Voyage Home.
Search for Spock,
Superman
Voyage
4
Home.
Quest for Peace.
What's
Voyage
5?
Home.
Is 5 Quest for Peace? Maybe 5.
Final Frontier.
Oh, Final Frontier.
No, Quest for Peace is Superman. Superman 4,
sorry.
right? Yeah. Final Frontier is
Patty Considine. Patty Considine.
He was
the star of Superman 4. He was
a rear admiral and
he was Nuclear Man.
Really good.
Well, the funniest thing, by the way, with some of those Star Trek Maroons is you could have some random admiral or somebody from like the 4th or 5th movie, and it's possible that used to be a Kirk, because as his weight fluctuated, they sometimes kicked his into other characters and whatever, and so it may not be exactly as it was when it was a Kirk, but Lord knows it's possible, and that's a whole other thing, which I'm not even sure how to get started with that path, but anyway, upgrades. But
it's fun. Yeah. I mean, all this stuff is fun. Play the game. We haven't played the game in a while. pick one you have to have it in your collection. So you have to have something in your collection
to upgrade
that you could to upgrade. What is the one thing that you would most, and this is blue sky, sort of like whatever it is. What's the one thing? And it doesn't, the thing you're upgrading to doesn't even need to be known to exist out there necessarily. I would just say, like, you have a stunt, you have the stunt thing, you want it to be a hero, or you have this costume piece and you want it, or this character or this movie and you want it to be this movie.
I mean, years and years ago, I don't have it in my collection anymore. I used to have a stunt Conan, and I guess I always would have loved to have found some kind of a hero one, but obviously you have the hero one. That's not a great answer. I guess I've got to pick. I mean, this is where it gets really tough. Like I have a great Boba Fett helmet in my collection, but I don't have a 100 like screen used whatever, where you go, there it is. You know what I mean? And I don't know, that feels like
the match.
Yes, and but I could live the rest of my time and never complain. But my God, wouldn't it be cool if I actually had the match? Anyway, I don't know, something like that. So there you go,
That's a good one.
A real asshole answer. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, that's a good one. I bounce back the Blade Runner gun, the Solo Blaster. I bounce really, but I think the thing that I just go for is that indie jacket. Just wanting to complete
upgrade the costume. Yeah, I get it.
Complete that look over there.
It'll happen.
And get something closer to what you have.
It'll happen. I have no doubt about it. It is only a matter of time and unfortunately money, but it will happen. So yeah,
very unfortunately.
Yeah.
What's the delta, Dave?
What happens as delta approaches infinity? Do they teach you anything about that?
Exactly.
Just on the curve as delta keeps going.
Well, that's the thing that they're trying to do is like, as because everybody thinks like, the sort of the rookie error in economics is that supply and demand are tied together. They're actually not. Those forces don't work on each other. It's the price. Price is the thing that works on those forces. So as price goes up, demand decreases in theory, and as price goes up, supply increases, and in general sort of is theory. And it isn't accounting for collectibles and all that. It's just sort of the way these things work. But the marginal utility that you get, you're always weighing up against not the resultant, but the correlated price. So what is the marginal utility I'm getting out of this thing compared to the cost, the price that this is going to cost me? The happiness that I'm going to get.
The jacket is going to cost you a lot, but I think you'll be happy. So I guess there you go.
Yes, very, 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 very happy. I could see that being my sort of white whale. I really don't. I'm very lucky. I really don't have a giant missing hole anywhere else in my collection. I think that is the big last thing to me. And look, there's pie in the sky stuff, 2001 things, things like that, that are less realistic. But I think that is the thing to me that could be that, if I do stop collecting or sort of turn the page into now I'm just a full-time comic art collector, I have all the movie props I want. I could see that jacket being that sort of, that's the final, the full stop at the end of the sentence.
Although, as you were
to use
talking
the British
about
term,
the numbers, price affecting supply and demand, as these prices are going higher, I don't know if demand is going up, but certainly it is bringing supply out of the attic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that is right. The price is dragging up. Well, now I have this thing that was previously not on the market, and now I'm excited to put it on the market, given that's where the
so
where the
I'm not sure there's anything. I mean, yes, we know the stories about 2001, but I'm hesitant to say anything is impossible. You know what I mean? It's only a matter of time. I don't know. Maybe someone will see $70,000 or $80,000 for the HAL from 2010, and then one day just goes, well, wait a second, I've got a piece of HAL from 2001. So I'm hesitant to say anything is impossible just because of the, as you said, the pull of prices on supply and demand. So yeah.
Yes. Yes, I have a funny story that I will tell you offline. But there was a recent thing that either you or I bought that recently maybe shook something else, possibly started to shake something else out of the trees, because of the price, the associated price with it. But I will
things
tell
happen
because that's not for public consumption yet. But maybe that's something we can talk about down the line.
Very cool. Well, I don't know. I guess that's everything I have to say on upgrades. You, anything else?
Yeah, that was a good episode.
Yeah.
Good topic. Good call, Dave.
Oh, my pleasure. I wrote it down at some point. It was on a random
we
list.
were back and forth about it, and you're like, we need to do an episode about this. So it was a good call.
Good.
And great,
happy. It
great
was nice
timing as well.
to just do a topic, and dare I say, we managed to go an hour and 19 minutes without having to talk about fakes for 4 seconds. By the way, you should upgrade your fakes. I should add that. You should definitely upgrade your fakes. How dare you?
I'd like to upgrade my fake Rathacon blaster.
There you go. That's impossible. That's a collectible. I mean, I should sign that for you. By the way, somebody did send me Paul Isaac, a collector out of the UK, who's a good guy, sent me a design for a "How Dare You" T-shirt. So I'll send that to you.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah.
It's got a ray gun on it, so it's nice. It's kind of a generic ray gun "How Dare You" T-shirt. So thank you, Paul. Maybe we'll put that up. If people like the design, we'll make it.
Yes,
but,
Glenn Carroll also sent us a very funny. It was more of a meme than a T-shirt, but sent us a very funny "How Dare You" meme based on listening to our episode. Listener and former guest, clapperboard expert Glenn
Clapper
Carroll.
collector. Yes, clapper collector. Well, please follow us everywhere, write reviews, follow us on our YouTube channel. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. If you haven't checked out the YouTube channel with the Guillermo del Toro auction, which is coming up September 26th, got a bunch of Guillermo stuff. I had a nice long chat with Joe Maddalena just all about how the whole auction came together. And also just checking out all the different stuff, the art, the props, and whatnot. It was very fun, so check those out on the YouTube channel. Email us. By the way, email us if anyone has some ideas for some other topics like upgrades, like just freestanding topics. We'd love. We're always searching for that'd be a good discussion. Not necessarily who a guest would be, but just stuff Ryan and I could talk about. So if you've got any ideas, please send them our way.
Yeah, send them over. Yeah. We're trying to fill that. We have a bunch of auctions coming that we have to cover, but we're trying to also fill the betweens. So
yes,
it's not
every
just
time we do
an
an auction, we like to do another episode or two, if possible, but certainly at least one
to give
that
you a
is
break.
Not about an auction. Yes, but maybe more just about collecting topics. So yeah. Please. Wonderful. Till the next time. We'll talk to you soon.
C'est la vie.